It's time to create our property in Revit. So we're going to go into Google Maps. You're going to find your property in Google Maps. This is my property, the one that I've been using as an example on Aspen Ridge and Baseline. But I need to be able to see the layers. So I'm going to go to this button in the bottom left corner. And there we go. Now if I zoom in just enough, you can see it shows me the property boundary. It's really important that you have that in there. So at this point, I'm going to right click and I'm going to measure distance. And I'm just going to click a distance. I want this to be a distance of about 100 feet. That is pretty darn close to 100 feet. That's close enough for what I need to do. So let me make sure that again I get the boundaries of my property in here. I have a 100-foot measure, and we're going to use this to create a scale for our actual property in Revit. So once I have this, then I'm going to right click. Again, you need to have your boundaries in that 100-foot thing there, and click print. So it's going to export this. So if I click print, then I can go to save as a PDF and just double check. I still see my scale in there. You notice that down here is a scale. This is not correct. This does not work. You have to have the right click measure. So I have 100 foot, got my property. I'm going to click save. And you're going to save this to your Google Drive. So navigate to your Google Drive on here and save that into your commercial project. And once you have that saved, then we're going to go into Revit. So let's move over to Revit. Oh, look at that. It's loaded. How convenient. So I want to click on New, and I need to browse. So you're going to have to go to the English Imperial Library and make sure that you get into the templates folder of the English Imperial Library, and you're going to choose the construction default. So again, that's in the English Imperial Library and in the templates folder that you get to that. And I'm going to go to the construction and hit open. We want to go into the site tab of floor plan and then click insert, then choose import PDF. And you're going to have to navigate to where you saved your PDF. And here's mine, B Tizzle's super cool site. And then I'm just going to let it load, let it load, let it load. And you might get a window that looks something like this because it exported as 3 pages. I just want this first one that has the map on it. So if I click OK there, and then I'm going to center this best I can. There we go. There's my map. So now I have my map in there. Now I'm going to go to the architecture tab, and I'm going to click on model line. And I want to create a line in here that is 100 feet long. So I'm just going to draw a line down here, and I'm going to type in 100. Boom, there's a 100-foot line. Then if I hit the escape key, now I have a line in there. I'm still on the model line draw, so I'm going to hit the modify, and now I choose my little image here. I'm going to scroll wheel out to zoom out, and I need to make this image, this line, my little scaled line that's 100 feet, I need that to be the same length as this little model line that I drew. So you can't just stretch one side of this. You have to grab the corner, and you're going to need to do this, a few times to be able to get this line to be the exact same size as the other line. So do what you need to do to get those matched up. I'm going to do the same. Now I've gotten pretty close. I can use the arrow keys, up and down arrow keys, to kind of line these up. And wow, I'm getting really close to this. So those lines look pretty close to lined up. So now I have my image here scaled to the same scale as my file in Revit. That is really important. Otherwise, none of your walls and your property lines are going to match. So now that we have that, we're going to go into Massing and Site and choose Topo Solid. And we're going to draw a rectangle that's larger than our property and completely fits inside our property line. So I'm going to choose my rectangle here. I can see my property boundary right here. So I'm just going to make a little bit of extra. Maybe we'll include some of that road if I want to mess around with that and add that later on. So there's my property. Once I have drawn that, I'm gonna click the check mark. But right now it's drawn over the top. I can't see anything, so I need to make this transparent. So if you hover over the property, so it's blue, and you right click, then you can override graphics by element, and you can set this transparency. I'm gonna set it to about 60%. And that allows me to see through my property into this image down behind it. Now if I go to Massing and Site, which I'm already in, and I click on Property Line, and we're going to create this by sketching. And what I can do at this point is trace my PDF right here. So if I click and draw, I can actually trace this little property line. And if you want to do it using like the arc tool, you are welcome to use the arc tool. I'm just doing some straight lines here as best I can to make my property. And at this corner, then I might choose to do the arc. This is a 3-point. Then I got a nice arc right there. And then I can continue along. So you're going to need to create and enclose your property. Then I click the check. So now I have my property at this point. Now, at this point, we need to confirm the length and width values to make sure it matches what we did in Google Maps. So I can use the ruler tool right up here, which is still there as long as I'm in the modify property. If you selected something else and it disappeared, you can always just click back on the property line and the ruler shows up there. So if I know that this edge of my property is supposed to be 386 feet, according to what I measured when I was doing my property, and it shows up to be really close to that, maybe a couple feet off in either direction is fine. Then you've done a good job, all right? We just need it to be really as close as we can get it. It's not going to be exact because this line over here that we matched isn't exact. So as long as we're close, I think you're in good shape. Now we have our property, and you can see that we have a very, very, very slight setback. You can check your setback, and I see right there that is only about an 8 foot. So typically, according to the city of Lafayette, we need to set back further from that. So you would need to actually build further back than what the property line is. So it doesn't really matter if the property line is closer than required setback. Just make sure you use the required setback according to Lafayette. Let us now go into the elevation view. So you're going to double click south, and in the south elevation, you're going to see that I have a topo surface in here. It's really thin topo solid. The topo solid is default set to only 1 foot thick, and so we can edit this and we can adjust this thickness later on if we need to, depending on if you have topography. So this works great. What we're doing right now works great if you have a really flat property. If you have topography and you need to add topographical lines, we will do that a little bit. But for right now, we're going to finish up for those who don't. So we need to add a couple other things. And so we're going to go and in the architecture tab, we're going to add a level. So I like to add my level so the left edge matches up. So you see I've zoomed out a lot. I'm just going to put it here between these two lines. It's really easy to draw it when I have a lot of space. And I'm going to drag it all the way over here and click it. So it looks like it made a new level here. It called it level 8. We're going to adjust some of these things. So I'm going to go to level 1, and I'm going to call level 1 my ground level. It's not level 1 anymore. This is my ground level. So this ground level is set to the height of my topo solid only if I have a flat piece of property. Now, if you don't have a flat piece of property and you have a sloped and you're trying to do topography, you're probably going to want to make like your level 1 be where you enter into your building. So we're going to have a little bit more work if we do that. This is going to be my first floor of my building. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to call this level 1. This is my new level 1. So when I do this, yeah, we want to rename corresponding views, and you're going to see over here, now I have a ground level and I have my level 1 again. I'm going to make this set to 4 inches. So this is going to seem a little weird, and you can see those overlap. But if I click on the level 1 line, you see a little squiggly right here. I'm going to click the squiggly. That will elbow so that I can actually read the level 1 a little bit better. Now you can see that these words are huge and they're kind of in each other. You can also adjust your scale down here. If I go to like 1/4 inches a foot, it makes the text smaller. So you can adjust these. The default was 1/8. So just keep that in mind if you want to change that. So I am setting my level 1 to 4 inches because I want my building to start there. This allows me to build a 4-inch tall sidewalk around the outside edge of my building. But that means when I start building my building, it's going to be floating. So you are going to have to, make some adjustments. You're going to have a foundation wall that's going to go from your lower level up to level 1, so that will actually make it so it isn't floating later on in your project. But for the moment, it's going to be floating 4 inches above the ground. That's okay. I don't know how tall your first story is. This is something that you're going to need to adjust. But if you want a 10-foot level, then this should say 10 foot 4 because my level 1 is at 4 inches. and so on. So again, we will get into this a little bit later as you determine what height you want all of your levels. But for right now, I can just set these, and you can always come back to these once you get into this and you double click the levels. You're going to need to adjust some of these and change some of these out as we get into further details. But for now, we should have what we need. If I go to Site View and I go to 3D View and I change this thing to realistic, you're going to see that my topo surface is not very pretty because I've not changed it into grass. So your last thing that you might want to do is edit type, edit this structure, and then change by category, set this thing to grass. And once we do that, it might show up here, it might not, it might be down here. If your window is not opened like mine, if you can't see it, you may need to open this up, you may need to open this up, but I can see grass. I'm going to hit the up arrow and apply. And then when I hit OK, now I have a large grass property here. Now I also realize that I have a road that is swiping through all this thing. So those are other additions that you can make later on. You can make another subdivision of your property and right here where we could subdivide this, and I could trace my road, and I could make that set to asphalt, and then I would be able to see my road in there. More on that to come. I just wanted us to get our property for now. So at this point, I think you're ready to move on.